Right, the Europa League quarter-final draw is underway. We have Dougie Critchley, our European expert, here. These are the teams we know in the draw. We now know who is going to face who. AC Milan have been drawn against Roma. Unlike the Champions League, we do have two teams from the same country going head-to-head. Liverpool have drawn Atalanta, fifth in Serie A. There's Bayer Leverkusen against West Ham. Goodness me, the Bundesliga leaders have drawn West Ham. It's Benfica, Marseille, and we will know the semi-final lineup as well in just a moment. So there we go. Let's just start then with the Liverpool-Atalanta. Group D winners, they are fifth in Serie A. How do you think Liverpool are going to be feeling about that draw?
It's an interesting one. Atalanta are kind of in their second generation. You know, in around 2020, they reached exactly 2020, they reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League before losing to PSG. Since then, the likes of Papu Gomez, Josip Ilicic, Luis Muriel, Duvin Zapata have all moved on. They've got this new generation of forwards, including Ademola Lookman, who spent time at Leicester City and Fulham on loan, Charles Ketelara, who was at AC Milan last year. So they are definitely a team that can cause anyone issues. They've also got Gianluca Scamacca, who scored in the previous round, formerly of Sassuolo and West Ham as well. So they shouldn't be underestimated, but at the same time, Liverpool will be reasonably happy with that draw. OK. Will they be reasonably happy with the fact that the winner of that will face Benfica or Marseille? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the two weakest sides in this year's competition, potentially lined up for the semi-final. Marseille lost heavily to Villarreal last night, but because they had that 4-0 advantage from the first leg, they went through there. Jean-Louis Gasset, their new manager, is their third manager of the year. He was Ivory Coast boss up until the end of the group stages of the recent AFCON, where he resigned. Ivory Coast then went on to win that competition, but he's got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang absolutely firing. For Benfica, watch out for Angel Di Maria, Rafa Silva, who's got a lot of experience for the national team as well. So they are who potentially await Liverpool if they make it through Atalanta. OK, and we know now that West Ham or Bayer Leverkusen will face AC Milan or Roma in the semi-final. Yeah, goodness me, West Ham, Bayer Leverkusen. What do you think David Moyes is going to be feeling about that one? I think he'd be pretty nervous. I think he'd be very nervous. I mean, Bayer Leverkusen, unbeaten in all competitions, the only unbeaten side in Europe's top 5 leagues. Now, 37 games. They've scored over 100 goals. They recently thrashed Bayern Munich 3-0. They drew 2-2 away from home as well. For West Ham, they couldn't have really had a worse draw for them. For you, how do you think this changes things now we know the draw with the route to Dublin, of course? Well, it's quite interesting. Similar to the Champions League, there does feel like an easier and harder side of the draw. I'd say West Ham, Bayer Leverkusen, AC Milan, Roma. That's the side of the draw you do not want to be on. For Liverpool, as they go for a quadruple of trophies this year, it couldn't really have gone too much better. They could have maybe had an easier side than Atalanta, but if they make it through them, Marseille or Benfica, two of the weakest sides in this year's competition. Neither are doing particularly well in their domestic leagues. They have shown glimpses of form in continental competition. So Liverpool, I think, are now the strong favourites to win the first Europa League under Jurgen Klopp. And I think that would be every trophy available that Klopp would have won at that stage, which would be pretty amazing. I just want to ask about the two Italian sides, of course, AC Milan against Roma, who've been on the up, of course, in the last few weeks, certainly. What do you think of this matchup? Well, that's a really interesting tie. Milan will probably feel like they don't really belong in the Europa League. They are 7-time Champions League winners. They made the semi-finals last year before losing to Inter Milan. They are second in Serie A. Roma have had a much harder year. They were 9th when they fired Jose Mourinho. They're now in touching distance of the top 4. They've recently employed Daniele De Rossi, the former Roma midfielder, who won over 100 caps for Italy, and he's really got them going. They changed their side heavily last night, lost 1-0 to Brighton, thanks to that magnificent Danny Welbeck goal. So that is going to be a really interesting tie. On basis of league form so far, you've got to go with Milan as being the slight favourites in that one. OK. So there we go, just confirmation of this tie then. We've just talked about AC Milan up against Roma. It is Liverpool, Atalanta, this quadruple chasing Liverpool. You wonder what Jurgen Klopp is going to be thinking about that. The Italians are 6th in Serie A as it stands, 28 points behind leaders, who are, of course, Inter Milan. We've got Bayer Leverkusen. What a draw that is for West Ham, goodness me, and Benfica at Marseille. So the first legs will be
April the 11th. The second leg's just the following week as well. Unlike the previous rounds, not split across a couple of weeks, it's everyone playing across an evening, and then, of course, the following week as well. And it's all building up, of course, isn't it, to a big night in Dublin.
What a place
and
to be.
What a venue. Great as well. We've got Dublin, we've got Wembley as well. Who are you fancying then in terms of a final for you?
Oh, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? I mean, Bayer Leverkusen, before a draw, I think were the slight favourites, maybe alongside Liverpool. They haven't won a trophy since 1993, but they are going for a Bundesliga, DFB Pokal and Europa League treble. I think it's between Bayer Leverkusen and Liverpool, but Bayer Leverkusen have the far harder draw because if they beat West Ham, they'll play Milan or Roma. Liverpool, if they beat Atalanta, will play Benfica or Marseille.